My name is Jake Corley. I'm one of the co-founders at Digital Wildcatters. We host the Empower Energizing Bitcoin Conference. Hope to see you guys there in March. Also host the Energizing Bitcoin podcast, shameless plug. I've had at least these three guys on and his boss. And so all things Bitcoin mining is what we've talked about and the intersection of that and energy. Really quickly, let's go through some intros, who you guys are, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah, I'm Chris Alfano. I'm the CEO of a company called 360 Mining. We own and operate natural gas wells here in Tarrant County and in Denton County, and use Bitcoin mining as a way to make more money on the gas that we produce.
I'm Joel Fulford from 10 Net Zero, based out of Houston, Texas. We more or less do Bitcoin mining development and sites. We have some of our own equipment that we mine Bitcoin, and then we also help operators and natural gas landowners and whatnot help monetize that stranded energy.
Appreciate it, Marshall. Brent Whitehead, co-founder of Giga Energy. We build Bitcoin mining infrastructure equipment, so data centers, generators, switchgear. We also source transformers, stuff like that, with the focus of off-grid mining, methane reduction. So almost all of our sites that we go to are flared due to either capacity constraints or being too far from a pipeline. We come in and we act as a service provider where we take all the gas, pay the operator for the gas, and then we catch the upside with the Bitcoin mining, and it's cost-free to the operator.
I'm Brent Rowan, so I work with Steve Barber at Upstream Data. I'm our lead programmer, and so we come in and we do a very similar thing to Giga. We sell the buildings, so we build buildings for flare gas mining, and then we sell those to oil producers or people who may be in need of some flare mitigation, and we help them get set up, and I'm the guy doing all the software on the back end of that.
Great introductions. You guys are crushing it so far. Let's go into, how did you guys get into Bitcoin mining in the first place? Obviously, these are much longer stories, which you can listen to on my podcast if you want to go into them. But let's kind of give the brief little overview of your kind of introduction into the space.
Yeah, so I have a background in finance and technology, and so when I stumbled upon Bitcoin and went down the rabbit hole, I knew I wanted to make that a career, and then went further into wanting to do Bitcoin mining. And big thing for Bitcoin miners is controlling your energy cost and producing hash rate for the lowest possible cost possible. Said that twice, which meant for us, actually, it's very possible. All things are possible with Bitcoin. For us, that meant vertically integrating on our power generation. And so that really turned oil and gas into a means to an end for us. And that end was really low cost, inexpensive power. So that's how I met Bitcoin mining and oil and gas.
Yeah, I'm from Canada originally. Actually, me and Steve Barber went to school together, mechanical engineering, worked in the oil fields up there in Lloydminster. And anyway, I ended up getting down in Houston in 2016. I was working with a company called Worley Parsons, large international engineering company. And I went and did my MBA at Rice. So I had Steve talking in one ear. I was like, Steve, what are you doing? What's this Bitcoin thing? And then when I was doing my MBA at Rice, I met a guy, my business partner, Brian, who was a Bitcoiner. So those two things kind of came together. I was working in oil and gas, and we just realized, there's so much wasted energy in Texas that there's such great opportunity to help monetize all that wasted energy and stranded energy that's how we came together. He's Brian and myself, and that's what we do.
So I actually grew up in the oil patch, so I'm third generation oil and gas, so I didn't start in the Bitcoin realm. I did meet my co-founder, Matt Lostro, in college. He was a Bitcoiner through in and throughout from the day that I met him, always advocating for Bitcoin. We actually saw Steve Barber's tweet of the first site in Texas, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Next week, we were sitting in Lloydminster, Canada, chatting with him, and he was scratching his head wondering why some kids rented a U-Haul and drove all the way across to Canada. We weren't old enough to rent a car, so we had to rent a U-Haul. So that was an interesting story. We made some good excuse to Steve on why it was a U-Haul instead of a car. But started there, put on a proof of concept, and just started kind of growing from there. But it was really, A&M has a really good Bitcoin ecosystem. So there's a lot, we have an A&M Bitcoin club. There's, I think a lot of people that have spoken here this week have been from Texas A&M. So I think that also was very helpful, just having a positive educational environment. I could have gone to a college that was like pro Ethereum or something, right? So I'm really lucky, that's probably UT. I'm really lucky that I went to A&M. and got to have that.
Yeah, so I got into Bitcoin pretty much directly out of high school. I was going to high school, and COVID hit right through my my second semester of grade 12. And it just turned out that, like, my dad has been working in oil and gas for a really long time. Steve Barber was working in oil and gas for a really long time, and they worked really closely on some products for artificial lift for bringing crude oil out of the ground. And so it ended up, I was looking for a job, Steve was looking for people, and my dad knew Steve and said, yeah, Steve's looking for people on this new Bitcoin thing. So I ended up at the company just doing low-level monitoring stuff, and it's kind of snowballed from there, and I've learned a whole lot about Bitcoin mining through basically just blind luck.
So is Lloydminster like low-key, like central Bitcoin now? Because like 3 of us have been there. You live...
It's the birthplace of off-grid, for sure.
Very strange place.
It's definitely not California where I'm from.
That's probably a good thing.
What I love about the diversity between all of you guys are playing in the off-grid space, but all of y'all's business models are actually very different. I don't think upstream, y'all don't mine for yourself. You're just providing the equipment, correct?
Very little. We like to sell the equipment. We're starting to work on some stuff that's like, okay, we'll sell you the equipment, and then we'll bring in our own miners to help you do flare gas mitigation, because a lot of oil field companies, they don't want to see the Bitcoin, right? They want to see cash flow coming in, and they don't want to touch any of the Bitcoin side of things. So we just come in and we say, we'll pay you a fixed rate for your power, and we'll do the mining, essentially.
And then, Brent, y'all's business model is pretty much the same on the equipment side. So you guys remanufacture the CAT generators. You guys have the boxes that you're selling, but then you also guys are doing mining as well, right?
Yeah, so we do both. I mean, we sell product. We kind of break it into 2 pieces, product and projects at Giga. Naturally, all of our projects, we get to utilize our product. So it's kind of a positive, feedback loop. But in Texas, we started realizing a lot of producers, they didn't really want, on a large scale, they didn't want to spend the money on the CapEx to do this. And they could get by with continuing to get flare permits, stuff like that. So they were happy to get something for their gas, even if that was very little, because they're just trying to solve an issue. They want to keep drilling wells. Their private equities won't let them dive into Bitcoin mining, stuff like that. So in our idea, we felt like it was a lot easier just to pitch for some of these larger scale projects to just say, hey, let us come take your gas. You don't have to take any exposure on Bitcoin at all. You'll get fiat every single month, and we'll completely mitigate all your flaring. And to me, it's a no-brainer. They should absolutely take that.
100%. Who has the stat? I know we talked about it on Tuesday of how much is being flared in Texas every day.
I think Brandon said that. How much was it? 1 BCF a day.
Jesus Christ. That's a lot of energy. And so, Joel, so y'all's entire business model is chasing down flares and then mining for yourself as well, right?
So, yeah, I mean, what you find is like, okay, yeah, there's flares out there, but they're not always the best gas, right? Like, I like flare sites, but the volume's typically low, like probably less than 100 MCF. So we started off finding some sites, putting our own gear out there and mining Bitcoin exclusively to us. But where we found there's more of a need is actually in stranded gas. There's a lot of stranded gas out there economically, typically, like pipelines screwing them over, or they can't get the landowner to get a pipeline to them. So they've drilled these wells. So we work with operators to help to find and identify these sites. We'll come in more or less as a site developer. We'll build it, we'll manage it, and then someone else is, like an investor, is owning the equipment, and there's a hosting or Bitcoin mining. So that's really where we've seen the biggest growth over the last year specifically.
And then, Chris, you have a very unique business model. Rather than you saying, hey, we're going to go be a miner, despite the 360 mining name, which should be like 360 oil and gas, you guys are an oil and gas company, first and foremost. So you went out and you bought some natural gas wells with the intention of being able to put some miners out there, but also giving yourself the optionality to be able to sell the gas. So all the gas that you have does have offtake. I love that business model.
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty interesting time, right? Because of the same midstream fees you alluded to and wide differentials make a lot of traditional natural gas wells economically stranded, which for us is great because that is trash to a traditional E&P. They see that, and this is not an asset that's making a lot of money. It might be cash flow negative with gas prices where they're at today. And so when you have the lens of Bitcoin mining and I can take this asset that's making $1, and if I layer on a Bitcoin mine, I could be making $10 or $12, it creates kind of this pricing arbitrage where we can go out and purchase assets that are valued at a very low cash flow, and then we can take them in operations. We operate the wells ourselves, and then we're able to bring the Bitcoin mining on our assets and, make a lot of money. But, as we all know, commodity prices swing back and forth, Bitcoin swings and the price of gas swings. So we kind of ride both of those in real time and are able to sell gas if that's more profitable or mine Bitcoin. So it's kind of like a hedge on both sides.
So for Chris, Joel, and Brent, let's talk about what are the requirements that you guys are looking at on the project side. And then when we get to upstream, let's talk about what are the size of applications that you guys can kind of play in.
Yeah. So again, for a Bitcoin miner, like very, very important. I'd say the first two things we're looking at when we're evaluating assets or helping other energy companies go do this. One, you're going to want to look at the gas. If not all gas is created the same. So the contents of the gas is a big impact on if you can generate power at all, and if so, how reliably. Another thing we're always going to be looking at is midstream agreements. So there's places where you can't use that gas for anything else other than going back in the pipeline. So like that would be a disqualifier for us. And then volume is a big impact. So the more gas there is, the more power potential, power generation potential, and ideally all that gas congregates in one central location where you can have all your facilities and generate more power more efficiently, things like that.
Yeah, to add to that, I mean, gas quality is very important for your power generation. Other things that we look at is you have to understand the lease agreements on these sites. So typically what we do is we get a gas purchase agreement with the operator, and then we got to figure out, okay, how much gas is in the ground? How long will this project last? That will dictate a lot. And then you need to look at atmospheric conditions. What are the temperatures up and down in this place? What is access like? One reason we use gas purchase agreements a lot is because that takes care of the royalty issue. Because if you're just buying gas from somebody and there's no gas purchase agreement, there's no point of sale or custody transfer, there's potential there that they could come after you later on for things. So you need to get those things lined up, and then your surface use agreement, you got to be able to do whatever you want on that site, put the equipment that you want out there, and so along with the gas, you have to take care of the legal land side. Is very important.
I was just say we look at four main things when we start a conversation, because like I think it was Joel or Chris said, there's a lot of there's more projects on off-grid that don't make it than do make it, because there's a lot of criteria that's a deal breaker if it doesn't happen. The first thing we look at is what's the size. That one's pretty straightforward. If you don't have a certain economies of scale, for us, it's not economically viable for us to go in and put all this equipment and set everything up. The second one is what is the gas composition? Like he said, not all gas is created equal. And I think one thing that I mentioned actually on Wednesday at the oil and gas workshop is you always want to be making sure that you know what your range of gas that you're going to be getting is. A lot of sites that we work with are actually gathered, and it's multiple wells that may have different BTU contents. And what ends up happening that we've seen is if a well goes down, that's going to change your weighted average BTU content. So you have this blended gas flow that's coming in, and your generator may be okay to run that. But if one well goes down, that was, help bringing down the BTU quality of your gas and making it more, pipeline spec gas, and the rest of the gas now is really rich, you're going to have downtime. You're not going to know why it went down. And a lot of engines, unless they're really, really new, don't have the ability to adjust based on wide BTU swings. The next one after that is what's the decline curve. So I think it's good to always know what that decline curve is going to look like. We have a lot of people that reach out to us that want us to come somewhere, and then we find out they want us to be there for 3 to 4 months. Well, that doesn't make economic sense for us to spend all this time and set up all this stuff just to be there for 3 to 4 months. And then the final one, which you can work around and get creative with if you have to, so it's not always a deal breaker, but it's does it have continuous pressure, right? Like, is the flow rate continuous? If they're running a lot of sites that we go to run JT plants, which means they're stripping out the liquids from the gas so they can sell those liquids and just give us the residue gas. Many times they put what's called a snap pilot, not to get too technical, but a snap pilot basically allows it to build up pressure, and then it dumps, and then it builds up, and it dumps, it builds up, and it dumps. And so while it's dumping, if they don't have it set right, and you always can get into arguments with oil and gas service companies because they want to set their stuff a certain way, you need it set a certain way. But if they don't have it set right, when it's dumping, you're no longer pulling you're pulling just the gas that's in the pipes coming to you. You're not actually getting any flow rate from the well. And so we had one site that we were going from 150 pounds down to 5 pounds within 30 seconds, and it was just this constant swing. Well, that was causing issues on RPM fluctuations, and it was bogging it down. So I say all this because this is stuff that an operator doesn't realize you need, and it's something that's really important to vet when you're looking into these opportunities.
Yeah, and I think one more thing that I'd kind of add to what these guys have said is it's also important to look at the people that you're actually working with. So a lot of people you'll find doing flare gas mining, you get one of two types of people. You get either the Bitcoiners or you get the oil people. And so you get oil people, they can run the well site really, really well. They have no issues there. But as soon as you put a Bitcoin mine on there, they're like really confused about how to get this Bitcoin mine up and running and making sure that the miners are hashing optimally and everything's working properly. Or you get the Bitcoin people who come in and they don't really know a lot about maintaining a well site. They'll put an operator on there and the operator maybe isn't keeping the oil in the engine up to spec, and all of a sudden your site goes down, and then these Bitcoin people are like, okay, well, why is my site down? I just expect good uptime. And so it's really rare to find people like the guys up on stage here who are both Bitcoiners and oil field people. And so I think there's something to be said for like, when you're looking at a site, I think you also have to look at the people who are going to be working at that site and the people you're going to be working with at that site, because those people, the better people you can get that are Bitcoiners and oil people, the better that site's going to run for you.
So we've talked extensively about, you can go to an oil and gas company who's got, flare gas or disadvantaged gas. You can eliminate the flares, help them lower the emissions, put into place a gas purchasing agreement, probably get somewhere between 50 cents to $1 an MCF, depending on a bunch of different factors. However, if these guys want to mine themselves, let's talk about the why there. Obviously, you kind of have to go over the hurdle of Bitcoin, right? And sometimes that's a little bit too big of a chasm to cross. But Chris, I think you had a really great presentation the other day, kind of walking through, gas right now is I think $2.14 an MCF, something like that, depending on the day. You walked through kind of the economics of that, some of the capital requirements, things like that. So if you want to kind of kick us off on the why are you guys doing this?
Yeah, so it's with gas prices where it's currently at, many natural gas wells are uneconomic on a gas-only basis. And so the biggest thing for me to get across is like Bitcoin mining is a market for energy anywhere energy exists, whether that's on the grid, at a solar plant, or on natural gas pads, right? If you can get over the hump and understand that it's a market, it opens up a lot of possibilities. And so for an oil and gas producer, we're asking them, they have to take a capital risk, right? But you're unlocking a new market in a new commodity that's uncorrelated to natural gas that pays out daily, which is a huge, benefit from a cash management standpoint. And it's currently making, 10 to 12 times more than they would get selling that gas to the pipeline. So you can completely change the economics of your natural gas operation by deploying this new market for natural gas. And that's why the opportunity is so huge for all of us is, getting and capturing that upside. And it's just a matter of where you want to be on that scale. Do you want to just sell your gas for $1 to a Bitcoin miner? Great. The Bitcoin miner's getting all the upside, but they're also taking the capital risk. So you can be anywhere on that spectrum, and there's, it's just really exciting. I just think it's revolutionary technology, what we're doing, and, the opportunity's huge. Like I like to say, in Texas, if you just took Texas natural gas and you turn that into a Bitcoin mine, it's 15 times larger than the entire global hash rate in Bitcoin. And that's just Texas, right? And all the guys producing gas are making zero because they're flaring it, or they're making pretty much zero because they're selling it and gas prices are so low. And there's Louisiana and Mississippi and Ohio and Kansas and New Mexico and Colorado. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and people just are missing it.
Jake, the question was, why would somebody like an oil and gas do Bitcoin?
Yeah, outside of a gas purchasing agreement, actually mine themselves.
Yeah, so one thing I've seen is that these guys are price takers. They don't have an option, right? So the smaller they are, the more flexible they are, the more agile they are, and they're looking for an edge. The smaller you are, the more you have to leverage that. So what I've seen is that, especially the younger the company is, the less hurdle they have to get over. So they're like, this is the future, this is what I want to be doing, or this is an option for me so I don't, lose my shirt somewhere. So that's one thing that I've seen is that they're doing it because they have to do it. Like they don't really have another option, or that asset goes under. And one thing I've seen is that, like I said, the younger the people are in the company, the more eager they are to do it. They see the upside, and they're fighting against what I'll call legacy mindsets, right? So There's people that want to be, they're ambitious people. There are people that see the opportunity and they want to get into it. And those are the things that they're fighting against, is like legacy mindset. This is the way we've always done it. But they see the opportunity and they want to get into it because, as Chris was saying, it's like the opportunity is huge. And they're like, this could be a step change for us in our company. So, that's one thing I've seen.
So I have a little bit of a mixed take here. I think that the smaller and mid-sized companies, can utilize stranded assets. They can utilize this at smaller flare sites. I don't really think that your majors will be doing this on big sites. I don't see that happening anytime soon. And my reasoning is, I think it becomes a capital constraint problem. Clearly, they have all the capital in the world. However, would they rather drill 5 more wells, or would they rather get $1 plus an MCF on their gas for someone to come take all the risk, and they get to keep on drilling their wells? So that is the way that I feel. I do think you have a lot of executives in these larger companies that are catching on, that are interested in Bitcoin, or they're younger guys that, they get Bitcoin, where, we just had a gas purchase agreement that we negotiated, and they came back and they said, we want upside. We want this to be tied to hash price. And I was like, well played. You're catching on. So, it's no longer, because their thing is if they don't want to be locked in at, $1 an MCF, and then gas rips to $9 and they're always at $1. Well, if they're still locked in at $1 an MCF if gas rips to $9. However, if hash price rips to 40 cents or to 30 cents, or we have another bull run, they get to now capture upside. And I think that's interesting that now they're actually betting on the upside of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's now their commodity that they're betting on, not actually the price of the fuel. I do think that stranded wells will continue to be something that smaller companies do a lot, like what Chris is doing, or work with Steve. I think Steve and them have a great model with going and working with these companies that buy these packages. But I do think there's a hurdle to where it starts getting really, really expensive, and there's a lot less people that can do that.
Yeah, so coming out of Canada, we're a little different than down here in Texas. You guys have a little bit more optionality on, we want to put in a pipeline because these sites are all really close to some population center. Up in Canada, it's going to be like, okay, well, our nearest population center is 3 hours away. We have no option to put in a pipeline here. And so what are our options? Our options are, we vent this, which is going to ding us on carbon tax and is really, really bad for the atmosphere, right? 20 times worse than CO2 over a 3-year period. We can flare this and literally burn money, or you could put in a Bitcoin mine. So you either burn the money or you earn the money. Like, those are your options. And so to me, like, Bitcoin mining is just a no-brainer for these guys, but they don't see that because, as Joel said, like, they could just go drill another oil well, right? That's going to make them considerably more money. So it's almost like, in a weird way, oil is too profitable for us to be at the point where this actually makes a whole lot of sense. But for those small, scrappy companies, they get it, right? They have those tight profit margins. They can't just go drill 20 more wells like the Synovises of the world. And so they have to make every dollar count on every site they have.
I want to get a t-shirt. You can either burn it or earn it. I love that.
I think that's on Steve's website.
All right. Well played, Steve.
Yeah.
We want t-shirts, Steve. All right, so there's been some comments made by Bitcoin miners that they're going to come in, take over oil and gas companies. Oil and gas is an easy business. What are your thoughts?
Where's Griffin?
No, I think I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity for oil and gas guys to get involved, right? But I think there's very, very different specialties in Bitcoin mining and oil and gas. And I think one of the hurdles, like Brent said, is if you can just go do something you're very, very good at doing and the price of oil is high enough, even if the return maybe is not as compelling as Bitcoin mining, like, you're going to always gravitate to what you're good at. So I think that's going to continue to be a hurdle. I could see that oil and gas companies becoming more Bitcoin miners as they run out of options, which would be really, really cheap gas and really, really cheap oil. That would kind of force some people's hands. But I don't know.
I think it's easier for an oil and gas guy to become a Bitcoin miner than it is a Bitcoin miner to become an oil and gas guy. But I think the real question is who's going to do it better. It's the oil and gas guy who's going to do it better at the end of the day. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's no coincidence that every single company that's doing off-grid right now in the space that's to a larger scale. Most of them have, if they're not an oil and gas background, they have a lot of people on their team with oil and gas backgrounds. I would say if they don't have that, they probably won't be around that long because there's so many hurdles and so much engineering that goes into this that people don't understand. I think that we're going to see over time, more people will be doing this with Bitcoin mining, but I do think that we're going to see this become a service provider, same way that you have Schlumberger, Halliburton, not every oil and gas company owns all their compressors, right? They use Arch Rock or Xterran or somebody, to come in and basically do all the compressor work for them to get their gas to market. It's kind of the same situation here. We'll be the service company that comes in to help them get their gas to market.
Yeah, I like the idea of being a service company to some extent, but I think one of the things I see from a lot of oil and gas guys is I feel they're a little bit behind the times, and maybe that's me just being a young guy in the Bitcoin space. I think they're behind the times, but I think a lot of these oil and gas guys, the oil and gas side is harder than the Bitcoin side, 100%, like 100% on board with that. But I think the oil and gas guys have to start picking up their feet a little bit on moving to new technology and starting to improve their own processes. And that's when I think those things will really take off. But if a lot of oil and gas companies aren't able to do that, I think they're going to get left behind. And I think we're going to see Bitcoiners sweep in and try to take over these stranded assets, take over these positions where we can actually make money as Bitcoiners rather than as an oil and gas company, or do both.
Yeah, one thing you've seen in energy companies is that back in the day, they had their own engineering teams. Like they were really, really good at engineering. And then they all became project managers, and they don't do engineering anymore. They farm it out to everybody else, right? So that's kind of the idea there, is that they need to switch back the other way, which I think they will. And the smaller people will do that first, because everyone in these small oil and gas companies wears multiple hats, right? So I that's why I think that's the route that's going to take.
What I've loved about having these conversations over the past few years with you guys, whether it's here, whether it's on the podcast, just kind of in passing, is just how this space is continuing to evolve and continue to innovate. And I truly believe that Bitcoin mining is energy infrastructures. We're seeing a massive amount of innovation. I see a lot of really, really cool stuff almost on a weekly basis. And so I want to ask you guys, and kind of closing, what are some things that you guys are excited about over the next 3 to 5 years in this kind of off-grid space?
I would say for us, what we're most excited about is bringing this technology to oil and gas guys and seeing the light bulb go off over time for these traditional people who are realizing that there's a new market for gas. I think that's more of a, ideological or thematic shift that I'm really excited about, maybe less technical. But I mean, that's what we're doing. I think we're all on the cutting edge of it, and we've all gotten our teeth punched in a few times trying to figure this thing out. So, I mean, we're just really excited to bring this to the market and get these guys on board.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for almost everything. We're so early, it's so new, it's so exciting. It's two of the most exciting industries in the entire world: oil and gas, energy, and Bitcoin mining, right? It's just the technology that's coming out. I love this new water cooled technology, the immersion. People are thinking, solving problems. You're seeing ingenuity come back to oil and gas and energy, which it hasn't been there for a long time, right? Like all the smart guys went to finance, and then they went to be lawyers, and then they went to tech companies. And oil and gas was just doing its thing for the last 30 years, right? Just chugging along, drilling holes. This is exciting. This is going to bring people back into oil and gas, back out into the field, back in their hands dirty and turning wrenches and being excited about it.
Especially that younger generation.
Exactly. I was talking to a guy from Halliburton. It used to be, if you were in engineering school, everyone was going to talk to Schlumberger, Halliburton. They were you wanted to get a job with those guys because it was cutting edge, it was exciting. I was talking to this guy. He said no one comes to talk to him anymore. Oil and gas is dirty. It's bad for the environment. This Bitcoin technology with oil and gas is completely flipping that paradigm around, and people are going to come back into it, and we're going to see so much cool stuff happening. I'm excited for my kids to see the job opportunities they're going to have. I hope I can give them some Bitcoin to get them started going. I'm excited about all of this coming together. It's just so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm really excited about, which I think is already starting to happen, is as this is here to stay. As this continues to grow, every day another oil and gas company is going to become more and more aware that this is something that's legit. And I'm looking forward to the days where oil and gas companies look at this and they don't say, explain Bitcoin mining to me, right? They say, we need offtake. We're drilling these wells. We're going to need offtake. where, do we want to go CNG, Bitcoin, or try to lay a pipeline, right? And it's not this foreign concept. It's something that is treated. It's treated the same way that other service companies are treated in the oil field. I think we're still at this unique time where it's kind of treated in a premature sense, where it's kind of this out there idea. You have the tech guys with the laptops and everything. It's like we're starting to mature this industry, starting to really button up. And I'm looking forward to when we kind of just blend in with the energy sector and just integrate with it. Yeah, that's the main thing.
I'm just super excited to see the whole Bitcoin industry bring a lot of our technology ideas into the oil and gas space. I'm a big tech nerd, obviously. You don't get into software design and IT without being one. So I'm just super excited for us as Bitcoiners to be able to bring that mentality of like, let's get all this cool new tech out into the oil and gas industry. Let's get these guys on the latest stuff. Let's synchronize everything together and get a really optimized system going on out here. And let's bring in our guys and make money, right? Like I'm super excited to see the jobs that we're going to create here for Bitcoin, as he said. And I'm just generally excited to see the technology that comes out of this. I think the clash of Bitcoin mining and oil is going to be a really good one.
The biggest thing I'm looking forward to is Empower 2024.
Man, that's a great pitch. I'm excited about that. And also, I know this wasn't like off-grid mining in the oil field. We totally just took over the oil field, but you can do off-grid and renewables and stuff, but like oil and gas is like way cooler. So let's give it up for these guys.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out to the 2023 North American Blockchain Summit. It was the best summit yet. We look forward to hosting you again next year. If you enjoyed the summit or like what you saw in this video, be sure to subscribe. If you're interested in learning more about membership in the TBC, go to texasblockchaincouncil.org to learn more.